It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, counter-terror police leading the investigation into a stabbing at a northwest London school. Two boys, aged 12 and 13, were stabbed at Kingsbury High School in Brent this lunchtime. Police say they are both in a serious condition. A 13-year-old boy has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. Also tonight, the public's view on the King Andrew and his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. An exclusive poll for Sky News suggests an overwhelming majority of the British public believes the King should encourage his brother to give evidence. We'll be discussing whether Andrew has permanently damaged the monarchy. Plus, the Children's Commissioner tells me social media companies shouldn't be allowed anywhere near under 18s if they don't make their platforms safer. Rachel D'Souza has just released a report into the damage done to children by adverts for products like weight loss jabs and steroids. And another frustrating day for Team GB at the Winter Olympics. I'll be speaking to a curling legend who's now the team's chef de mission, Eve Muirhead. Well, that's come much more here on the UK Tonight. Well, we start tonight with a developing story in northwest London. Counter-terror police are leading the investigation into the stabbing of two boys at a high school. A 13-year-old boy has been arrested. Well, our home editor, Jason Farrell, is here with me in the studio and has been following this story since it broke a little earlier. Jason, what do we know at this stage?
Well, we know it happens at Kingsbury High School. This is in North London. It's a school that's just kind of where the M1 meets the North Circular, so sort of Barnet way. And the police were called around lunchtime. And because of the seriousness of the nature of what was being reported, they turned up with armed police at this school. They were there within 13 minutes. And when they got there, what they found was that there was two young boys in a serious condition. They'd both been stabbed, a 13-year-old and a 12-year-old. They were taken to hospital, as I say, in a serious condition. One of them is in a trauma unit, but the suspect was nowhere to be seen. So then there obviously began a search for the suspect, and we got an update this evening that a suspect has been arrested. That suspect is 13 years old, and they've been arrested for attempted murder, and that a weapon has been recovered. And we can hear from the Police Detective Chief Superintendent Luke Williams.
At this very early stage, we're keeping an open mind as to any motivation behind this attack. However, due to the surrounding circumstances, the investigation is now being led by officers from Counter-Terrorism Policing London, who are working closely with our local officers in response to this incident.
Well, Jason, counter-terror police involved, which may seem unusual for an incident of this nature at such an early stage. What does it tell us?
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously choosing their words very carefully, and they only want to tell us so much. They're saying they're working with local officers, they're keeping an open mind, but they say surrounding circumstances mean that the counter-terrorist police are involved, which would suggest, you know, that there could be some kind of ideological motive that they're considering. They're looking into that. Obviously, we can't talk about this case, but in other cases where there have been terrorist events, it would be things, it could be a range of things that could lead to that assumption. Things that were said at the scene, maybe already searches done on technology, could be that someone was known to them. So there's any number of reasons why they might go down that route and involve counter-terrorism officers at this stage. Normally, when we see a stabbing at a school, certainly over the last sort of 15 years, you'd be thinking, is it gang-related? Is it county lines? But the sad truth is now that when we talk about the referrals to prevent the counter-terrorism organisation, the programme that people go on, 50% of them are now people under the age of 18, and actually a third of all referrals are between 11 and 15 years old. And even when it comes to arrests, 1 in 5 are under the age of 17. So these kind of things could, you know, legitimately happen at a school, and that is obviously the worrying things. And thoughts now really, obviously, to the people at the school, the families of these victims. I mean, a terrible thing to be going through. And even the pupils, you know, a lot of them were kept behind. They were spoken to by the police long after school had closed. So as the headmaster, someone called Alex Thomas, said, this has been deeply, deeply traumatic for the school and for the community. Yeah,
the two boys stabbed in a serious condition tonight, just 12 and 13. A 13-year-old boy arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. Jason, thank you, Jason Farrell, keeping across that developing story for us here on Sky News this evening. Well, we have heard from the Education Secretary tonight, Bridget Phillipson. She posted this on social media saying, "I'm heartbroken to hear about the stabbings at a school in Brent. My heart goes out to the families affected and the young people, teachers and school community at this awful time. We are in contact with the school and the council to offer support. Investigations are now underway." That is the statement from the Education Secretary on social media this evening. Well, next tonight, an exclusive poll for Sky News suggesting an overwhelming majority of the British public think the King should encourage Andrew to speak to authorities investigating the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein. The poll was carried out following recent revelations in the Epstein files, and it's the first test of public opinion since the documents were released. Prince William again faced questions about his uncle during his trip to Saudi Arabia, despite the strongly worded statement that was released by Buckingham Palace last night. From Saudi, our royal correspondent Rhiannon Mills has this report.
Sir, to what extent do you think the royal family has done enough around the Andrew and Epstein issue?
There was no reaction, but we know that William and his team heard it. The palace currently trying every strategy to try to keep this trip to Saudi on track. William, of course, used to navigating difficult times and questions when he wants to.
Did Princess Kate come with you?
No, she's not here, sadly. No.
The heir and his family, they hope, are representing a positive future for the monarchy at a time when they really need it, as they compete against the seemingly uncontrollable noise around Andrew and Epstein.
You can see that throughout all of this, they are just trying to let their work do the talking, although that is increasingly difficult as they continue to face more questions. You do, though, at least get the sense they are trying to appear on the front foot. The last thing they want to be accused of is covering anything up, as they insist that, just like the rest of us, they have no idea what more may come from those Epstein files.
It is clear from the statements released on Monday that something had shifted over the past few days. The questions about Andrew's role as trade envoy going right to the heart of what they're meant to be about. Neither William nor the King have spoken about it at all on camera, and he wasn't going to do it here.
Hello for my kids. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you very much.
William will no doubt have seen the growing calls for the King to tell Andrew to speak to the police. We know that even on official trips, he monitors the news back home.
Who's a striker? You a striker?
I play.
You play everything. Goalkeeper?
He likes goalkeeper.
He likes goalkeeper, does he?
But here there was a new global audience for William to consider.
A bit loud. Have you heard of Aston Villa?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. That's my team.
Oh,
no.
Trying to keep the focus on important future relationships as the headlines in the UK are still dominated by the past. Rhiannon Mills, Sky News in Riyadh.
Meanwhile, the brother of Virginia Giuffre has told Sky News that the former Prince Andrew has to show up and give evidence to the authorities in the United States. Sky Roberts was in Washington as Democrats introduced legislation targeting sex traffickers, which they're calling Virginia's law. Mr. Roberts said Andrew has a lot of questions to answer when asked about the former prince by our US correspondent Mark Stowe.
The photograph of the then Prince Andrew with his arm around your sister has become, certainly in the UK, a defining part of this scandal. Clearly, he is one person who hasn't answered questions here. What is your message to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor?
I think he should show up in front of our Congress and answer questions. I think that he has a lot of questions he needs to answer, and he has been exploited through these files to have inconsistencies in his own messaging. So I want today to be about Virginia's law, to not allowing this to happen again. But to Prince Andrew, former Prince Andrew, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, to be specific, he needs to show up. He needs to show up, and he needs to answer questions in front of our Congress.
Same thing as what Sky said. He ought to show up and show up now.
Well, let's get more now on that exclusive YouGov poll commissioned by Sky News, which suggests an overwhelming majority of the UK public thinks the King should encourage Andrew to give evidence. Here's our royal correspondent, Laura Bundock.
Andrew's involvement with Jeffrey Epstein has put the royal family, by association, in a very difficult and potentially very damaging position. We wanted to find out what the public make of how the King has been handling things. And this YouGov poll for Sky News is the first test of public opinion since that huge dump of documents. And the results really are revealing and fascinating. Let's take a look at some of the findings now. An overwhelming majority, 82% of people, thought the King should encourage Andrew to give evidence to police in the US. This YouGov poll also found 45% believe the King has done all he can to distance himself and the wider royal family from Andrew, with 39% of those are saying the King should be doing more. And we also asked if the King should stop allowing Andrew to live on the Sandringham estate. A majority, 63%, thought he should. Now, these are, as I say, fascinating. They're quite telling. We know that Thames Valley Police is also now currently assessing allegations about Andrew, including whether or not he shared information following trade trips with Epstein. I think the most recent revelations there are what in part prompted Buckingham Palace to issue the statement in which they said they stood ready to support those investigations, and also pointed out that the King had, and I quote, profound concern about recent allegations surrounding Andrew's conduct. There is, though, some split in opinion as well. We also asked people whether the King should apologise to Epstein's victims on behalf of the royal family. These results are interesting. 35% were in favour, compared to 45% who thought he shouldn't make any kind of official apology. I was interested in the what was said about Andrew's move to the Sandringham estate. Remember, this is the King's private Norfolk estate. It's not owned by the public purse. And yet there was a majority who felt Andrew shouldn't be living there, which is interesting. He only moved there last week, at the start of last week. He's only been there a week. Look, I think what all of this does is really give us a snapshot of public opinion about how the King has responded to what is an evolving and, like I said, a very challenging situation for him, because it's not just Andrew's reputation and judgment being called into question. By association, this has an impact on the wider royal family, and it has the potential to threaten the monarchy as a whole. And I think if the public feel the palace their response isn't reflecting the scale and the significance of this scandal, then that will start to raise even more questions. It is, of course, worth pointing out that Andrew strongly denies any of the allegations, but this poll certainly revealing and interesting.
Well, joining us now, Graham Smith, Chief Executive of the anti-monarchy campaign group Republic. Good evening to you, Graham. Thank you for coming on to join us. You'll have been listening to the results of the YouGov poll there, commissioned by Sky News. I would imagine there's not much in there that surprises you.
No, I mean, another poll from Savanta came out yesterday showing that support for the monarchy has dropped to 45%. You know, there's a polling out late last year which showed that people, by a wide margin, had a pretty dim view of the way that the royals have dealt with this. And I think there are still lots of questions about how William and Charles are dealing with it. Yeah,
so many questions, not many answers, as we've been discussing. It feels like nightly on this show. The crisis centred around the former Prince Andrew. You know, we talk about a crisis within the monarchy. This crisis involving Andrew's links to Jeffrey Epstein has been around for well over a decade now in the public domain. Do you think this is a genuine tipping point in terms of really damaging long-term the future of the monarchy?
Without a doubt, and I've seen Conservative and Royalist commentators say the same thing, that, you know, this is unprecedented crisis for them. Not least, I think, partly is because it's happening without the Queen there to defend them. She used to deflect an awful lot of flack and criticism when she was alive. But, you know, we now have people heckling Charles and saying, well, what did you know? And how long have you known it? And that's the question that needs to be really pressed upon the royals. You know, we've had two pretty weak statements coming out from the palace and from William and Kate not really saying anything. What we really need to see is William and Charles in front of a camera themselves speaking with their own voices, saying, look, clearly things have gone wrong in the palace. Clearly there are questions to answer. And both journalists, politicians and the police should have full access to whatever information they need, should be able to follow whatever trail of evidence there is and open up and expose whatever problems there are. Until they do that, there's going to be a lot of questions still remaining about how long they have known what's been going on, and other questions about their own conduct. There have been plenty of allegations and queries and criticism, not necessarily criminal, but about the way in which the royal household behaves generally. So, but I've never seen public anger directed at the royals in the way that it is now. We've rarely seen the support drop quite so low, and I don't think it's going to turn around and go back up anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, we have to point out that, allegations and inclusion in the Epstein files does not indicate wrongdoing. But, you talk there about the silence, and you'd like to see the King and Prince William in front of a camera talking openly. Yep. Many people will argue, they'd like to see the same thing from Andrew. He needs to be on camera before the King and Prince William. And I just wonder if you
Andrew
think
needs
openness...
to be in front of a police officer,
not... Yeah, in front of a camera, in front of police officers, in front of US authorities. But in terms of this silence, do you think that is damaging? If we saw more openness, if we'd seen more openness early on, do you think we would have seen this kind of massive drop in popularity? Do you think they could have handled it better?
Well, this is the problem that they're in, is that if they remain silent and continue to behave as if they can keep everything under wraps, it will continue to damage them. If they are open and honest, it will damage them even more, because I think there are an awful lot of secrets. I mean, if you look at what Andrew Lowney says just about Prince Andrew, he says an awful lot that he's not put in his book, there's an awful lot that he hasn't yet published. There's plenty of anecdotal evidence that there are other things that have happened behind closed doors. They are one of the most secretive institutions in the country. Historians have compared them unfavourably to MI5 and CIA. They're outside of the scope of the Freedom of Information Act. They squirrel away lots of official documents into their family archive in Windsor. It is pretty impossible to get straight answers from them, and they will not answer questions unless they are, soft soap answers about some charity or something they're involved in. Their whole attitude is they do not owe us any answers. And even now, in this huge crisis, we don't see them answering questions. They simply walk past and ignore them. And instead, they get their staffers to put out some pretty weak statements, hoping that that will be enough. So, they are really trapped between a rock and a hard place, because, openness will cause untold damage. More secrecy will continue to drag this out and raise huge suspicions and more anger.
Yeah. 82% of people asked in the YouGov poll commissioned by Sky News would like to see the King lean on his brother to give evidence to police. I think, a lot of people would think, again, they're just allegations, but any information that he does have about Jeffrey Epstein may be useful. But your organisation actually reported the former Prince Andrew to police over allegations he shared sensitive information during his time as trade envoy. Thames Valley Police is the organisation in question. They said that they're assessing these claims. Have you had any update on that?
No, I mean, the way that I've had this conversation with police before, unless you're a victim or a witness, then they don't have any obligation to come back and update you. But, this is the issue with this whole business about Andrew giving testimony to the US Congress. I'm sure the US Congress would like to hear more about Epstein, but he's not a witness. He's a suspect. The allegations are against Andrew, and that needs to come first. So that is why the police need to deal with this. I mean, I did report Andrew to the police yesterday on the allegations that he shared confidential information with Epstein. And I did that because the information came out through the BBC, I believe it was, over the weekend. And I could not see any difference between those allegations against Andrew and the allegations that had surfaced the week before against Peter Mandelson. But last week, I reported Andrew to the police in relation to the 2010 case where a young woman was allegedly trafficked to Royal Lodge for his, to meet Andrew and to then get a tour of the Buckingham Palace and all the rest of it. And that has had a mooted response and no reaction
So you
from
feel
the
it's
parents.
double standards. I should just point out, the former Prince Andrew isn't a suspect until police say so at the moment. These
he is alleged to have committed crimes. Now, yes, OK, the police haven't yet done anything about it, but the police have a lot of questions to answer as well, because they haven't done anything about this for 25 years.
You think it's been double standards in terms of the way Lord Mandelson has been investigated and the former Prince Andrew? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. But, I mean, if you look at... Virginia Giuffre reported her abuse to the Metropolitan Police years ago, and the Metropolitan Police didn't want to know. It's been reported to them a number of other occasions. I'm not aware that they have a single time have they asked Andrew to go to a police station and give evidence or to give a statement or to answer questions under caution. They have simply not wanted to know. And again, if you look at what Andrew Lowney is saying, he is claiming that the people that he's spoken to in researching his book, that there were police officers on the Royal Protection Squad who raised concerns and they found themselves bumped off the squad. There are civil servants who raised concerns and they found that their career paths were blocked from further promotion. There are questions to be answered by Andrew, of course, William and Charles, their staff, and also the Metropolitan Police, the political class who have turned a blind eye to a lot of this. So they must have been briefed, at least some of them, and the civil service, because this sort of stuff doesn't carry on for so long without people knowing about it. We're now seeing how many files there are on Epstein. This would have been fed back over the years. People would have been briefed, and yet it's only now coming out.
Yeah, well, it certainly seems a swell of public opinion moving towards pressure on the royal household to urge the former Prince Andrew to come forward and give evidence.
That's all we've got time for.
I just want to say the Andrew Lowney you mentioned there, of course, is the British historian and author who's written several books on the royal family and in particular the former Prince Andrew. Graham Smith, thank you for your time. I'm sure we'll speak again on this subject. Graham Smith there, CEO of Republic. Thank you so much. Still to come here on the programme. Nearly 100 flood warnings remain in place across England today with no end in sight to this record-breaking run of wet weather. And the wait goes on for a medal at the Winter Olympics after Team GB suffer an agonising curling defeat. We'll hear from the team's chef de mission.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Britain's record-breaking run of wet weather is set to continue. Forecasters warning that many areas face at least another 10 days of rain. Sky's Dan Whitehead has been to meet one farmer in Somerset whose livelihood is hanging in the balance.
There's so much floodwater here that getting anywhere is proving difficult.
We're trying to reach this flooded farm, but we've had to ditch the cars because the levels are so high, the Environment Agency is pumping out water.
4 tons of water every single second.
We made it. Thanks for sending Will.
James and his farm are completely cut off.
I'm going to take you now to the end of this little peninsula where there's a salt moor to the left, North Moor to the right, and the moors have actually joined up at the end of this track. So
it's just water across the whole lot?
Yeah, so the track carries on, but it's underwater.
So what did you plant here last year?
Winter wheat in October.
And is that that's destroyed?
Well, it's 16 days it's been under now. 21 days, it basically starts rotting and dies. So, yes, it will be. Yeah,
what is that? That's tens of thousands of pounds gone.
Yeah, not just in that field, but over the other fields, yeah, it'd be in the region of that.
It hasn't been this bad since the major floods of 2014. There have been improvements, but not enough, according to James.
You want permanent infrastructure because this is the new normal.
Seems to be, doesn't it? It seems to be, and we're behind the curve again. We're always too late to the party, and, you know, it'd be nice just to try and get ahead of it before we do have an absolute major incident.
The relentless rain up and down the country has led to fresh warnings from the Environment Agency today, calling on the public to remain vigilant. But what is behind this constant wet weather? It's all caused by something called a blocked weather pattern. In a normal situation, the jet stream would flow across us, with weather systems being created. Occasionally, large areas of high pressure can get stuck along the jet stream. This blocks and prevents low pressure, generally wet and unsettled weather, from moving away. This is happening right now, with a large area of high pressure stuck over northeastern Europe and an area of low pressure, the bad weather, struggling to move away from the UK. So is there an end in sight?
There are glimmers of hope for later this week that the block to the northeast of the UK will at least shift further east, allowing some break in these systems, so they'll be moving through finally. It doesn't mean we're going to see an end to the rain, but hopefully we'll see something a little colder and drier for a couple of days.
For now, there are some more warnings for rain and flooding on ground that is already beyond saturated. Dan Whitehead, Sky News, on the Somerset levels.
So to come here on the UK Tonight, calls for tighter regulations as a report finds that products like Ozempic, steroids and Botox are being advertised to children on social media platforms. Also, a £6 billion black hole that could leave children in crisis. Will the government get a grip on the special educational needs crisis? A £6 billion shortfall in special educational needs and disabilities provision could leave students and parents facing major challenges unless long-awaited government reforms get to grips with the issue. Rising demand for tailored financial and educational support has left many local authorities simply struggling to cope. And experts say plans to write off councils' debts won't actually fix the problem. Our Deputy Political Editor, Sam Coates, has this report.
You'll go now in your books. You're good.
The Rise School in West London teaches autistic pupils from all over the capital. Many of these children have struggled to cope in mainstream schools, but are now learning with specialist help. The future role for these types of special school and the pupils in them could soon be changing.
Hi guys. Hello. Hello.
We took Ed Davey to the Rise School.
I'm really keen
The father of a disabled child and the most outspoken on this subject in Westminster.
So I'm really keen to know, is it a good school?
Where I was before, it was very, there was one TA between two classes, and it was just so stressful.
There's less people in a classroom, and obviously the teachers understand you more, because obviously you got the support that you need, and you're not just get pushed away to the side.
Have you noticed a difference in how you feel?
Very different, yeah.
The government wants more children with additional needs in mainstream schools in future. Fewer pupils could get dedicated extra funding through an educational health and care plan, and the rights of parents to appeal a decision could be curbed. Ministers say this will improve the children's life chances. We caught up with Ed after our chat with the pupils.
What did you think when you saw their view of their school? The story they told of this amazing school was so positive, and how they had their chances, their life chances, had been changed by this school with the smaller class sizes, the specialist attention. The idea we can all mainstream children is just nonsense. We do need specialist schools.
Principle of money following a child with special needs.
That's a huge principle, really important.
And that's something you would fight to protect?
Yeah, 100%. Those legal rights are critical, yes we will. They're looking to narrowly at the thing that's in front of them. They're not looking at a transformation of the system.
If schools like this are clearly working, why is there a push for change? Here's the context. The amount of EHCPs has risen dramatically since they were introduced in 2014, and the number is only going up. Almost all types of need have risen, with autism up faster than any other. The result? High need spending has exceeded funding for years. It's why the government is talking about this now. In 2 years' time, the annual deficit is expected to be £6 billion a year. Council leaders like Matthew Hicks have been picking up the bill, although recently the government has used a loophole to take the money off their books.
So the system's in crisis for many reasons, and it's really important that we see a root and branch reform of the current system.
Do you think that the government has got the stomach for this fight?
I think the government has to deal with this. It's not looked at. We can go back to 60 councils that won't survive if that deficit sits on their books.
At the moment, a school can only access top-up funding for a child with special educational needs if that costs more than £6,000. But I understand there have been discussions in government about raising that to £40,000, £50,000 or even £60,000. That means many more kids' needs will have to be met from central budgets and fewer kids getting special funding for their help.
No decisions have been taken, and the Department for Education insists cost savings aren't the goal. There's no doubt change is needed, but these children dream of the same futures as those elsewhere. But after months of discussions, they wait to see if this government has found the answers. Sam Coates, Sky News, West London.
Well, today I've been speaking to the Children's Commissioner, Dame Rachel D'Souza. She's calling for tighter regulation on social media platforms over the amount of harmful adverts children are being exposed to online. That's after the release of a report, which she commissioned, that found children are being bombarded with ads for things like weight loss jabs, skin bleaching products and steroids. But I started our conversation by asking her for her response to Sam's report.
I belong to an international network of commissioners, and I've looked at SEND provision in Canada, in LA, in Australia, in the Nordic countries, and seen all the different models and tried to advise the government about ways to do better on this. I surveyed every single head teacher in the country. I got a 90% response rate and asked them what their biggest worries were. And it was wider provision for children, it was SEND, it was mental health support. So the heads are worried that the current system is busting, it's not helping them do it. Now, as Children's Commissioner, I have talked to hundreds of thousands of children with special educational needs. And the children are my bit, right? And when I say to them, what do you want? What do you need? They say to me, we want to go to our local school. We want to get our needs met. We don't want to be bossed off for hours somewhere else. But we really do need the support in school. We have an adversarial system at the moment where basically you have to try to get a diagnosis and an EHCP, it's called, an Education and Healthcare Plan.
And even if you've got that, some parents are finding themselves in court because they can't get a place in a special school.
13,000 parents a year going to tribunal, so in a court situation to get the support for their child that they're not getting, and 90% of them win. So we need to rethink about the system. Now, the percentage of children with serious disabilities, I worry about that cohort. That stayed pretty much the same. Those children shouldn't even have to apply for any. If you've got Down syndrome, if you've got cerebral palsy, you should be supported from day one. Some of those kids are waiting 3 years, 4 years. And then there's this huge growth in children with neurodivergence. It's been, autism, ADHD, and there's a big sliding scale there. And I think what we need to do there is stop putting those kids on diagnosis waiting lists and start right from nursery saying, how can we help?
Yeah, what can we do? It needs a root and branch reform. I mean, that's
100%.
That's 100%. What we've been reporting today. I mean, the annual deficit on this is projected to be £6 billion in 2 years' time. And what Sam has found, our deputy political editor, is that the government seem to be leaning towards providing for children in mainstream education, moving away from the reliance on special schools. And that is going to be seen by many as a cost-saving measure. And again, alarm bells will ring for parents because they will think that their rights will be taken away because it is so expensive. And, councils, the government cannot afford a £6 billion deficit. So what is the fix here? Where should the focus be? On mainstream education or special schools?
We will always need both, right? We will always need both. There are some children who will need special provision. We also need to develop special provision in local schools. And that's some of the things that I've seen some of that done so well in different parts of the world where you get expertise, you get units, so kids can go to their local school but get the support they need. I think your point, though, is the most important one. I've written the children's plan and gone out before this white paper. I've written my own white paper to show how this could look. No child's EHCP should be taken away. No child's rights should be taken away. The million-dollar question is going to be, will the government fund it?
You've produced a report that has found appearance-changing products like Ozempic, the weight loss drug, steroids and Botox are being advertised to kids on social media platforms. I mean, the mind boggles. Talk to me about what you've seen and what children have told you about what they're seeing.
Look, I would not have believed it myself. And I've done lots of work with children and young people about pornography and seeing terrible things. But this has really shocked me. So I've talked to thousands of young people, both in terms of nationally representative surveys, but in sort of proper sitting down and talking and telling me what they've seen. And we're talking 13 to 18-year-olds, lots of 13, 14, 15-year-olds. What are they saying they've seen? Black and Asian kids saying they've been targeted with skin bleaching products, weight loss products targeted at 13 and 14-year-olds. And it starts with, this vitamin or this pill that you could buy. Boots and places won't sell them to under 18s, but that's where it starts. And then it's Ozempic, it's weight loss jabs. Even worse, kids talking to me, and over half of them having seen adverts for fillers, for lip fillers, for Botox for wrinkles, and it's not just girls. So there's a lot of targeting of girls, but the boys were saying we get loads of products. First, it's vitamins, creatine, protein powders, and then it's steroids. Absolutely shocking. I think the parents of this country would be horrified. And the kids tell me, the young people tell me, our parents don't know we're seeing it. In fact, we don't even think about telling them. It's so common. And once you've clicked on one, you just get targeted and the algorithms go and go. Absolutely horrendous. And what they're telling me is it affects how we feel about ourselves. 1 in 10 of them try these products. I had one girl telling me, I ordered some eyelash stuff as a 13-year-old and I got an infection and had to have antibiotics. A 17-year-old saying, look, I've just made a list. Lips, eyes, eyelashes, forehead, and I'm just going to go through and buy the products for each of them because I need to change. This is a vulnerable age. It's an age where you're just starting to worry about how other people look. And I think the adults in this country would be horrified at how normal this is.
When we talk about online harms, your mind immediately jumps to pornography, violent content, suicide forums. This is, let's face it, mainstream advertising for adults.
Yeah.
And the effect on children, you've just explained it there. What needs to be done?
Yeah. So, look, a year ago, the Children's Code came in from Ofcom that was meant to protect children and keep them safe. And at the time, I was worried it wasn't tough enough. And I said to Ofcom and I said to ministers, I'm going to check at the end of the year whether this code has kept children safer. I'm going to ask them. I'm afraid we're already partway through the year and this is not good. I mean, there is no mention of these products or this kind of advertising in the Children's Code. The Children's Code needs to be better, be stronger. Children need to know about it. I mean, if I was the minister or the head of Ofcom, I'd be writing to every child in this country, telling them how I was trying to protect them and thinking about how I could help make them aware of the things on this. So I think there's the Children's Code and the protections there, but look, the tech companies need calling in.
Well, you talk to them on a regular basis.
I sure do. I sure do. I call them in every few months and I challenge them. I'm about to do on this.
You're going to take this to them?
Yeah, normally it's the pornography and the other things. And I say to them, why are you not getting this down? And basically, if they are multi-billion-pound companies. They could deal with this. If they don't, we should be using the Online Safety Act to fine them. Or frankly, we talk a lot about social media bans for children. I wouldn't ban the children, I'd ban the social media companies. They shouldn't be allowed anywhere near under 18s if their sites are so unsafe. And kids are saying to me, we want to be safe, we want to be protected, we want to enjoy the internet and the digital world, but it needs to be safe by design.
Dame Rachel D'Souza speaking to me earlier on today. Still to come here on the UK Tonight, as Team GB suffer another Olympic heartbreak today in the curling. I will speak to the former gold medalist and Team GB chef de mission, Eve Muirhead.
program is delivered by DHL, the official logistics partner of VSL.
Welcome to the DHL Sports Hub on Sky News. Coming up, reflections from Emma Raducanu after reaching her first tour final in more than 4 years at the Transylvania Open. And celebrations for the Seattle Seahawks after they win the Super Bowl for the first time in 14 years with a defensive performance for the ages against the New England Patriots in California. But we start with Formula One and the final 3 car launches ahead of the first official pre-season test this week. Aston Martin revealed their 2026 challenger yesterday in Saudi Arabia, with McLaren also showing off their latest creation across the water in Bahrain. Cadillac chose a different way to promote their debut car, and Craig Slater's been across it all.
The venue, a cultural centre. The soundtrack, classical. With Adrian Newey's creations, aerodynamics meet art. Is this another exquisite composition? It probably will be, although Newey admits his new Aston Martin is still a work in progress, and he'll want to avoid it having a power deficit too. Will he need the FIA to take a fresh look at that Mercedes engine? There has been this big engine controversy as well with Mercedes. Do you think that needs sorting out, or can it be left to lie, as it were?
I think, well, I'm biased, clearly. I think everybody is aligned bar one manufacturer, so where that will end up, we'll, I guess, find out in Melbourne.
Lawrence Stroll's paying Newey tens of millions to build a winning car for his son, and for a driver Newey deprived of at least 2 world titles. Fernando Alonso, who turns 45 this year. You develop the car with Adrian. By the middle part of the year, or maybe by the end, you maybe look like you can win again, or do win again. Surely you would not stop at that point. Surely you would keep going if you got the glint of maybe a championship the following year.
It will be important, yeah, no doubt. You know, to race one more year, I need, you know, to feel for sure happy. Yeah, I need to feel motivated. I'm motivated now. I'm fresh. I'm ready. But you need to have, that evolution through the year. You know, even if we start with some challenges, you know, you need to see the progress in the team.
Aston launched in Saudi Arabia, home of their title sponsors. McLaren in Bahrain, base of their owners. Having climbed a mountain by winning both championships last season, under these new rules, in a sense, are they back at base camp?
There's a lot of new things on the car that we have to prepare for, learn about, as well as the team.
I think it's going to be a big challenge for all of us. Obviously, the cars are changing themselves, but the power units especially, you know, we've had the same engines for the last 10 years or so.
24 Super Bowls is how F1's American owners see the season. They'll have enjoyed Lewis Hamilton's cameo there with Kim Kardashian, as well as Cadillac buying TV's most expensive advertising to reveal their new car. The spectacular and expensively put together F1 pre-season hype will soon be at an end. The truth about who really looks good will be revealed on track. And this week should give us quite a few clues about who that is. Craig Slater, Sky Sports, Ithra.
Well, Craig mentioned the Super Bowl there, and it was the Seattle Seahawks who won that for just the second time in their history on Sunday, producing a defensive masterclass on their way to a 29-13 win over the New England Patriots in Santa Clara. Drake May was sacked 6 times and intercepted twice as the Seahawks stifled the Patriots quarterback, while Kenneth Walker rushed for 135 yards on his way to being named MVP. The result also saw Seahawks defensive coordinator Aidan Doherty become the first British-born coach to win a Super Bowl. It's the Seattle side's first win in the NFL showpiece since their debut victory in 2012.
I had 100% confidence. We got the best team. 12 is 1, mob ties. We got the best fans in the world, 12s. Look how many 12s are in this stadium right now. We never wavered, man. We believed in each other. We loved each other. and now we're world champions.
Proud of the guys, you know, like they made a commitment at the start of the year to come out and play every play, and could they push themselves to play like that every play? And today they went out and showed the best version of themselves.
I got to talk to some of your players this week. They love you. They say you're like a player, you're like a friend. How close do you feel with this unit?
Yeah, I appreciate everything they do. I appreciate the work they do. I like the way we all keep each other accountable, and we have a common goal.
Your journey to this Super Bowl stage starts when your mom got a tape of the 1985 Bears winning a Super Bowl, and that's how you watched them as a kid in North London. Do you think that kid would ever think he'd have such a prominent role in a Super Bowl champion team?
No, not at all. The crazy thing is Leslie Frazier was on that team, the guy I coached with. No, I think as you go through these things, you take each moment as it is, and this is an unbelievable moment, and I'm going to take it in tonight.
England's men's rugby union head coach Steve Borthwick says he's still looking for more from his team, despite seeing them ease to a 48-7 win over Wales at the start of the Six Nations. The team has now won each of its last 12 matches, having run in 7 tries in a routine success at Twickenham.
I thought defensively we were excellent. We know Wales have got so many dangerous players and so much pace out wide. I thought we shut that down real well. I thought our kicking game was good. I thought that the set piece did a good job. I think there's plenty of room for improvement there. What was really pleasing is we created loads of opportunities. I think what's really clear we can get better at is converting those. I thought we didn't, especially in that second half, we didn't convert the opportunities in the manner that I'd like us to. So there's certainly plenty for us to go and work on. What's pleasing me now is the level of experience we have and younger players emerging. I think that the speed we now have on edges, the athleticism we have in our back row, and the tactical smarts we have around our 9 and 10, I think that blend across the board is very good.
In tennis, Emma Raducanu says she's encouraged by the start she's made to working with LTA coach Alexis Cantor after reaching her first final since her 2021 US Open win at the weekend. Although she ultimately lost to Serena Kirstia in the Transylvania Open decider and has since pulled out of the Qatar Open on medical grounds, Raducanu's up to 25th in the world rankings. She's been working with Cantor since splitting from her previous coach, Francisco Roig.
He's really good. I've known him for a few years now. He's been helping me, hitting with me, and he's been around me through various different stages, very different game styles, and trying to just bring me back to myself, my game identity, playing in the way I want to. And I think this week was a good step in that direction. So yeah, really happy with how the week's gone. I don't know what I'll be doing moving forward, but for now this is like working, and I think it's mainly about finding my style on the court and putting my print on it, and yeah, just letting it come from within.
Now, he's not permitted to play on golf's PGA Tour again until August after leaving the Live Series, but Patrick Reed's using his time productively as he waits for a return to the American circuit. Well, the American continued his excellent start to 2026 with his second victory of the new year on the European equivalent at the Qatar Masters, beating Scotland's Callum Hill by 2 shots. It followed last month's success at the Dubai Desert Classic, while Reed was also second after a playoff in between at the Bahrain Championship. The American needed 3 birdies on the back 9 to secure the win after 2 bogeys in his first 6 holes.
I wasn't looking very good there on the front 9, and to lose the lead like that, then to be able to kind of flip the switch there on the back 9, obviously felt amazing and was great, kind of, especially this little run I had, 2 wins in a second. It's awesome. I mean, I love the way the game feels, and I couldn't be more proud of my team and my family back home. I mean, for pulling all nights and all the grinding we've done this off season. So it's special to come out here, especially get 2 wins early on in the season, and hopefully there's a lot more to come.
This program is delivered by DHL, the official logistics partner of VSL.